Tow this old wreck right now. Richard slammed his hand against the rusted hood. Jack stood firm in the driveway. He blocked the massive tow truck. His worn boots held their ground. Please, Richard. My daughter is sick inside. Through the glass window, a little girl sobbed. Not my problem. Hook it up. Richard thought he owned this gated community. He thought his polo shirt made him a king. He was wrong, because 5 minutes later, a military helicopter would tear across his perfect lawn. Jack Miller was 32 years old. His body felt like it had lived twice that long. Deep purple shadows bruised the fragile skin beneath his bloodshot eyes. His broad shoulders slumped under an invisible, crushing weight. Every muscle ached with a bone-weary heaviness. He wore a faded olive green t-shirt. The thin fabric was heavily frayed at the seams. Smudges of dark engine grease permanently stained his worn denim jeans. His heavy combat boots scuffed against the immaculate concrete driveway. He moved with a slow, deliberate stiffness. Every single step required calculated effort. Sleep was a distant, forgotten memory. He had barely closed his eyes in 48 hours. His exhausted body was running on pure adrenaline. Now even that chemical fire was fading quickly. He rubbed his calloused hands across his rough, unshaven face. He just wanted a few hours of quiet rest. He just needed to hold his sick daughter. Was a little piece too much to ask? His battered 1998 Ford pickup sat heavily in the driveway. It was definitely not a beautiful machine. It was a scarred, stubborn survivor. Deep, jagged scratches marred the faded red paint on the heavy doors. A thick, stubborn layer of pale desert dust coated the cracked windshield. The rugged truck looked entirely out of place here. It belonged in harsh, unforgiving, hostile environments. It did not belong in this sterile, manicured Virginia suburb. The massive tires were caked with dried, cracked mud from miles away. The heavy steel rear bumper hung slightly crooked on one side. It carried the physical weight of countless rough, demanding journeys. Jack genuinely loved that old, ugly truck. It remained reliable when everything else in the world fell apart. The loud engine roared to life every single time he turned the key. It never once complained about the heavy, punishing loads. He had parked in a desperate, panicked rush. His exhausted mind had been consumed with dark worry. His little girl was inside running a dangerously high fever. He had sprinted toward the house without checking the tires. The heavy front left wheel rested slightly over the painted concrete line. 2 inches. That was the total extent of his terrible crime. 2 tiny inches of dirty rubber touching the pristine neighborhood sidewalk. In any normal, compassionate place, nobody would ever care. Passing neighbors would see a tired, frantic father rushing home. They would probably offer a kind, helping hand. They would bring warm soup or medicine. But this was definitely not a normal place. This was an exclusive gated community with incredibly strict rules. Perfection was not just casually expected here. It was ruthlessly, coldly enforced without mercy. Jack stood silently by the heavy front door. He gripped the worn brass handle tightly until his knuckles turned white. He took a deep, shaky breath to steady his racing heart. The cool morning air slowly filled his burning lungs. He actively tried to lock away the dark memories of his recent deployment. The deafeningly loud noises, the endless blinding sand, the heavy, crushing responsibility of keeping his men alive in chaos. He needed to be a normal dad right now. He needed to be gentle and soft for his sick little girl. He hard pushed the traumatic thoughts down deep inside. He forced a tired, gentle smile onto his exhausted face. He stepped quietly inside the still, dimly lit house. He left the dusty, battered truck sitting alone in the driveway. He left those 2 offending inches totally exposed to the pristine street. He had no idea a petty storm was coming. Richard Vance always demanded unquestioning obedience daily. He was a bitter 55 years old. He possessed far too much free time. His crisp, pastel pink polo shirt screamed wealth. Not a single wrinkle dared to exist. Sharp creases lined his pristine white khakis. He wore a heavy, gleaming gold Rolex. It caught the harsh morning sunlight perfectly. It was probably an expensive fake. He wanted everyone to feel entirely inferior. He strolled down the quiet, perfect sidewalk. His polished leather shoes clicked with authority. He carried a thick black leather notebook. He held a bright yellow measuring tape. He used it to measure grass height. He measured property values in strict compliance. He thrived on finding tiny, meaningless flaws. He felt immensely powerful holding that measuring tape. His spotless silver BMW sat proudly nearby. It rested in his perfectly paved driveway. The expensive luxury car reflected his inflated ego. Richard considered this entire neighborhood his personal kingdom. He was the undisputed Supreme Homeowners Association president. Every single blade of grass belonged to him. He practically intimidated the quiet suburban residents. He issued aggressive fines for unauthorized mailbox colors. He screamed loudly about wrongly placed trash cans. Frightened neighbors actively hid behind their drawn curtains. They desperately avoided his cold, searching eyes. Nobody ever wanted to face his daily petty wrath. He loved planting deep fear in them. It made his empty, boring life feel important. He smiled a thin, cruel, joyless smile. He slowly scanned the street for new victims. He desperately needed someone to punish right now. He flipped open his dark leather notebook. Dozens of neat, angry names filled the pages. He checked off petty, ridiculous violations every morning. House 42 left a bicycle outside overnight again. House 18 planted the entirely wrong shade of roses. He eagerly wrote down harsh, unforgiving financial penalties. He truly believed he was protecting civil society. He was actually just acting like a cruel bully. The pristine neighborhood felt exactly like a wealthy prison. Every massive suburban house looked exactly the same here. Every green lawn mirrored a fake plastic painting. Real, messy life was strictly forbidden on these streets. Normal human existence was a highly punishable offense. Richard Vance demanded a sterile, controlled environment. He fiercely guarded his boring, artificial suburban paradise. Nothing loud or chaotic could ever breach his walls. His strict rules dictated meaningless suburban living standards. He demanded conformity from every single anxious neighbor. Any tiny resistance was futile here. His sharp eyes suddenly locked onto a target. His neat, rhythmic footsteps abruptly stopped moving forward. His thin jaw tightened in pure disgust. A horrible, ugly eyesore ruined his perfect street view. The morning air grew tense and bitterly cold. He gripped his leather notebook tightly. His pale knuckles turned a bright, angry white. He marched purposely toward the visibly offending property. He relished the glorious taste of upcoming conflict. He lived entirely for these small, pathetic power trips. He carefully prepared his loudest, most authoritative speaking voice. He wanted the whole terrified street to hear him. He wanted to make a brutal, memorable public example. He adjusted his heavy, gleaming fake gold watch. He marched straight toward the dirty, dusty driveway. He planned to utterly destroy a man today. He thought he held all the winning cards. He assumed his petty rules governed the entire universe. He firmly believed nobody could ever stop him. He had no idea who actually lived there. He was walking blindly into a massive, dangerous trap, but another storm was already waking up. Jack quietly closed the heavy front door. The house felt terribly hot and stuffy. He walked softly into the dim bedroom. His sweet 6-year-old daughter lay right there. Her small face was flushed dark red. A terrible fever burned through her body. She coughed with a harsh, wet sound. The awful noise echoed in the room. It tore right through Jack's exhausted heart. How could he possibly leave her now? She whimpered softly in her restless sleep. He gently wiped sweat from her forehead. His rough hands trembled with deep fear. He desperately wanted to take her pain. He felt helpless in this room. Medical bills already haunted his tired mind. An ambulance ride cost way too much. They had to drive to urgent care. The old truck was their only hope. Her breathing sounded dangerously shallow and fast. Urgent care opened in just 1 hour. They needed to be exactly first in line. The Ford pickup was fully gassed up yesterday. Then his secure military phone suddenly buzzed. The harsh sound shattered the quiet room. Jack stared blindly at the glowing screen. Did they really need him back again? He had barely been home 2 days. He answered with a tight, dry throat. The familiar voice on the line was cold. It gave a swift, unquestionable tactical order. A high-priority classified mission required his team. A critical rescue situation demanded immediate action. He had to leave within 15 minutes. An extraction team was already flying here. He hung up the heavy black phone. He sat frozen on the soft bed. His exhausted mind raced in pure panic. Could he really do this terrible thing? He was a father before a soldier, but his country demanded his sacrifice. His beautiful wife was finishing a shift. She worked long nights at the diner. She would not be home for hours. Who would take Lily to the doctor? He had to leave the truck keys. His wife desperately needed that old Ford. It was their only reliable working vehicle. Without it, they were stranded here. She had to rush home via bus. The bus system was notoriously slow today. She would grab the truck to drive Lily. It was a perfectly timed survival plan. He could not ask his commander for a delay. The military simply did not care about fevers. National security never waited for sick kids. He quickly grabbed his faded duffel bag. He started tossing in his combat gear. Heavy body armor dropped into the canvas. Every loud zipper pull felt like a betrayal. Why did duty always demand so much? He packed extra magazines with shaking hands. He shoved his boots into the bag. He walked back to his daughter's bed. He knelt down on the hard floor. He pressed his lips to her head. Her burning skin felt like a stove. Tears flooded his exhausted, dark, bloodshot eyes. He felt like a terrible, failing father. He was leaving her when she suffered. Was he making the wrong choice? He gently tucked the thin blanket around her. She opened her glassy, feverish little eyes. She weakly grabbed his thick, calloused finger. "Daddy, stay," she whispered in the dark. That tiny question broke his soul. He fought hard to hold back sobs. He choked on his own bitter tears. He squeezed her tiny hand gently. He could not explain global serious threats far beyond their street. He could only offer a broken promise. "I love you," he whispered so softly. He swore he would come back soon. He carefully closed her bedroom door behind him. His heavy heart pounded with pure dread. He checked his digital watch with anxious eyes. Time was running out entirely too fast. His elite team was already inbound right now. He just needed 5 more quiet minutes. He needed his tired wife to arrive. He slung the heavy bag over his shoulder. He walked toward the front living room. He grabbed the truck keys from the counter. He left a frantic note for his wife. He explained the keys were in the ignition. He thought his home was a safe haven. He believed the worst pain lived strictly inside, but the real nightmare waited right outside. Richard stopped abruptly beside the dusty red truck. He pulled his bright yellow measuring tape out. He bent down near the overgrown front lawn. The green grass measured exactly 3 inches high. The strict neighborhood rules mandated 2 inches maximum. A cruel, satisfied smile spread across his face. He loved finding these pathetic little rule breakers. He opened his expensive black leather notebook carefully. He began writing a harsh, expensive financial citation. His expensive pen glided across the thick paper. He noted the unapproved lawn height with glee. Then he noticed the heavy front left tire. It rested 2 inches over the concrete boundary. This was an unforgivable parking violation today. He quickly added another massive fine to the ticket. The total penalty reached $500. He tore the pink slip from his notebook. He slapped it hard against the dirty windshield. Jack stepped out of his quiet front door. He carried his heavy military duffel bag tightly. He saw the angry man by his truck. Richard pointed a condemning finger at the vehicle. "Your disgusting grass is 1 inch too high." Richard spoke with incredible venom and intense disgust. "And your ugly truck is blocking the sidewalk." Jack just stared at the bright pink paper. He felt a deep, exhausted ache inside him. "I am leaving for an emergency right now." Jack kept his tired voice calm and low. "My wife needs this vehicle for our daughter." Richard let out a loud, mocking, cruel laugh. "Your personal problems mean nothing to me." He tapped the bright pink ticket aggressively. "This neighborhood maintains incredibly high standards of living. We do not tolerate messy, lazy residents here." Jack tightened his grip on the heavy bag. "Please understand, my little girl is burning up." Jack practically begged the arrogant older man now. "I will cut the grass tomorrow afternoon, surely." Richard shook his head with fake, dramatic pity. "Rules are rules for every single person here. You signed the strict homeowners association agreement moving in. I am officially ordering you to pay this. If you refuse today, I will escalate things." Richard puffed his chest out with pathetic pride. He truly enjoyed crushing desperate people like insects. Jack looked at the expensive fake gold watch. He looked at the perfectly ironed pastel shirt. He saw a man who never faced real hardship. He saw a man drunk on fake power. Jack could easily shut this man down, but he needed to remain a quiet professional. "Just leave the truck right here for today." Jack tried one final time to reason calmly. Richard smirked and pulled out his cell phone. "You just made a huge mistake, buddy." Richard dialed a number with vicious, dark intent. He requested an immediate, aggressive parking enforcement response. Jack realized his polite words were useless. What happened next changed everything. This petty argument would soon spark national consequences. The arrogant homeowners association president had pushed too far. He was about to awaken a sleeping giant. Jack's muscles tightened under his faded shirt. His elite combat training flared up instantly. Every instinct screamed at him to act. He had neutralized real, dangerous threats overseas. He could easily break this arrogant man. A single tactical strike would end this. Richard stood unprotected and physically weak. The older man was entirely, laughably defenseless, but Jack forced his heavy hands open. He took a slow, deep, measured breath. He buried his natural fighting reflexes deep. True strength required iron-clad control. He was a highly trained military professional. He was not a reckless man looking for trouble. He refused to lose his strict composure. He slowly relaxed his tense, rigid shoulders. He looked at the loud, shouting man Richard desperately needed his fake suburban authority. The angry Homeowners Association president waved the paper. He yelled about strict community landscaping guidelines. His face turned in deep red. He thrived on this pathetic public dominance. Loud people usually hide deep, hidden weakness. Jack knew exactly what real power was. Real power never needed to scream loudly. Real power moved silently in the dark. It protected innocent people from terrible nightmares. Jack carried the heavy weight of a nation. Richard carried a cheap plastic measuring tape. The stark contrast was painfully ridiculous. Men like Richard ruled tiny paved kingdoms. They enforced silly rules about painted mailboxes. They never faced actual, life-threatening danger before. Men like Jack fought for global freedom. Jack shifted the heavy canvas duffel bag. The thick strap dug into his shoulder. Inside were tools for actual dangerous war. He was leaving to save innocent civilians. His mind needed to be sharp. He could not risk a petty brawl. Local police would definitely delay his deployment. A simple assault charge would ruin everything. His elite tactical team depended on his skills. His sick daughter depended on his wife. The old truck was their only lifeline. He had to swallow his fierce pride. He had to endure this humiliating insult. Some battles were simply not worth fighting. He stared blankly at the angry president. He let the harsh insults wash over. He remained motionless and totally silent. His rigid posture reflected pure military discipline. He locked his jaw in silent defiance. He absorbed the verbal abuse without flinching. Richard saw this quiet silence as surrender. He mistook Jack's fierce discipline for cowardice. The wealthy man smiled with immense satisfaction. He loved crushing the spirits of people who were struggling. "You have nothing to say, you loser." Richard taunted him with a cruel smirk. "You know you are in the wrong." Jack just looked at his digital watch. The glowing green numbers ticked down slowly. He only had a few short minutes left. His military extraction team was inbound now. He refused to give Richard any satisfaction. He would not beg this tiny bully. He stood tall like a solid stone statue. His stoic silence was deafening and heavy, but Richard missed the hidden warning. He felt like a massive, victorious king. He thought he had easily won today. Jack closed his tired, bloodshot eyes briefly. He pictured his feverish daughter sleeping inside. He pictured his brothers flying toward him. He would let Richard win this petty game. He would let the arrogant president gloat. Pink paper tickets meant nothing in war. He stepped back toward his front wooden door. He accepted this temporary, frustrating neighborhood defeat. He needed to focus on his upcoming mission. The United States government was waiting for him. But here is where it gets truly interesting. Richard was not finished pressuring him just yet. Writing a simple ticket was not enough punishment. The arrogant man wanted complete humiliation. He wanted to leave Jack devastated. Saturday morning arrived perfectly quiet. The digital clock struck 6 exactly. Pale sunlight hit the pristine roofs. Automatic sprinklers hissed on green lawns. Small birds chirped in expensive trees. Virginia suburbs loved their deep silence. Wealthy neighbors slept in peace. Nobody expected any loud disruptions. The strict Homeowners Association demanded total quiet. It was a perfectly sterile dawn. Then a massive roar hit hard. A heavy diesel engine screamed loudly. Fierce air brakes hissed with violence. The ugly sound shattered everything completely. A huge commercial tow truck arrived. It rolled down the perfect street. Thick black smoke puffed out upward. Heavy metal chains clanked loudly. Bright amber lights flashed urgent warnings. It looked like a yellow monster. Deep grease stained its massive dual wheels. The heavy front grille looked hard aggressive. It ruined the beautiful neighborhood aesthetic. The excessively loud engine hard shook windows. Frightened sleeping dogs started barking in panic. Expensive home security alarms chirped in confusion. The sudden disruption was massive and absolute. The massive heavy tires crushed crisp fallen leaves. The loud, ugly truck stopped abruptly. It idled loudly right by Jack's house. A burly driver stepped out slowly. He wore a dirty safety vest. Heavy steel boots hit the pavement. He carried thick, heavy steel cables. Richard Vance stood waiting proudly. He waved the driver forward eagerly. He pointed at the red Ford. He wanted it gone right now. He demanded total Immediate vehicular removal. The driver simply nodded his head. The tow truck backed up loudly. Annoying warning beeps echoed off houses. The harsh noise woke sleeping neighbors. Expensive curtains twitched in nearby windows. Frightened eyes peeked out nervously. They saw Richard standing perfectly tall. They knew exactly what this meant. Someone was facing his wrath. The steel hook dropped down heavily. It hit the spotless concrete hard. The heavy mechanical winch whined loudly. Thick steel cables dragged across ground. They slid under the old Ford. The cold metal scratched the driveway. Richard smiled at the ugly sound. He loved watching this rough damage. He paid extra for immediate service. He wanted maximum humiliation today. Was this his ultimate cold victory? He surely thought it was then. The hydraulic lift groaned with massive power. The heavy back of the tow truck tilted. The battered old Ford sat defenseless. It had survived harsh field conditions. Now it faced a petty neighborhood dictator. The dirty tow truck revved much higher. Black exhaust choked the fresh, clean morning air. The peaceful suburb felt like a dangerous emergency zone. The heartless towing was actually happening now, and the chaos was only beginning. Richard stood tall in the middle of the driveway. He dramatically smoothed his perfectly clean pink polo shirt. He adjusted his heavy, expensive, fake gold Rolex watch. He felt like a victorious king conquering enemy territory. The loud, groaning tow truck engine sounded like pure music. It was the beautiful sound of strict homeowners association justice. He loved watching people who were struggling lose their belongings. It firmly validated his own immense, unearned neighborhood wealth. He looked at Jack with cold, snobbish contempt. He saw only a dirty, useless, lazy suburban failure. "Let this be a massive warning to everyone here." Richard practically yelled over the loud diesel engine noise. He wanted every single hidden neighbor to hear this. "I am the undisputed law in this neighborhood. My rules maintain our extremely high, premium property values. People like you constantly drags our beautiful community down. I will not tolerate this disgusting mess anymore." He pointed aggressively at the battered red Ford truck. His thick finger trembled with weird, pathetic, angry excitement. This was definitely the best part of his week. He was publicly humiliating a physically stronger, younger man. Jack remained silent and perfectly still. His heavily muscular arms hung loosely at his sides. His dark, exhausted eyes burned right through Richard's skull. He looked like a dangerous, coiled, waiting predator. He could easily end this annoying man right now. One single tactical strike would instantly push Richard back. But Jack possessed unbreakable, elite military discipline. He refused to give this tiny bully any real satisfaction. He simply waited for his scheduled military transport vehicle. The clock ticked down the final precious, agonizing seconds. The heavy steel tow chains tightened with a loud clang. "You think you can just ignore me?" Richard sneered, stepping aggressively closer to the silent soldier. "You are nobody in this rich, powerful town. I can ruin your pathetic little life with one call. I can take your house just like this truck." Richard was drunk on his own fake power. He felt invincible standing on this pristine concrete driveway. He honestly believed he controlled the entire known universe. He thought his pink citation paper was a magic wand. He had no idea about Jack's real life. He did not know about the dangerous combat missions. He did not know about the elite and elite special operations unit team. Richard crossed his soft arms across his chest proudly. He smiled a nasty, arrogant, self-satisfied smile. He watched the massive hydraulic lift begin to pull. He thought this was his finest, crowning moment. He thought he had destroyed this quiet man. He fully expected Jack to finally break and cry. He wanted Jack to beg on his dirty knees. But wait, there's more. The arrogant Homeowners Association president was about to learn a lesson. He was about to experience true, terrifying power. His tiny, fake kingdom was about to be crushed. Jack rushed down the steps. His heavy bag swung wildly. He stopped near the truck. The diesel engine roared loudly. "Stop the lift right now!" Jack pleaded with the driver. The driver ignored him completely. He looked over at Richard. "Richard, you cannot do this." Jack kept his voice low. "My wife needs this car. She is coming home soon. My little girl is sick. They need to buy medicine. They must visit urgent care." Richard just crossed his arms. He wore a cruel smirk. "You owe $500. Pay it right now, loser." Jack patted his empty pockets. He had no extra cash. His military pay was late. "I have no money today. I will pay you tomorrow. Just leave the truck here. Please drop the steel hook." Richard laughed a cold laugh. "Credit is not accepted here." The tow fee is extra. You are broke then. That sounds like your problem. Jack felt pure panic rise. His sick daughter needed help. His elite team was coming. He needed this driveway clear. He stepped toward the truck. Drop the truck right now. His voice grew slightly louder. The tow driver stepped back. The burly man looked nervous. Richard puffed his chest out. Do not touch my contractor. You are breaking the law. This is a private community. I enforce the strict rules. Jack gripped his heavy bag. His thick knuckles turned white. He desperately needed this vehicle. His family relied on it. It was their only transport. Without it, they were trapped. His wife would panic soon. His daughter would suffer more. Richard, I am begging you, show some human decency today. Just give me 5 minutes. My ride is almost here. Then I will move it. I swear on my life. Richard shook his head slowly. Your word means nothing. Look at my sick child. Jack pointed at the house. The bedroom window was dark. She has a high fever. She needs a doctor immediately. You are putting her safety at risk. Richard did not care at all. Take an expensive taxicab. Call a cheap Uber car. That is not my concern. Your situation does not belong in this neighborhood. Jack felt his blood boil. He took a deep breath. He fought his angry instincts. I am serving our country. I deploy in 10 minutes. I cannot deal with this. Please show some basic mercy. Richard smiled a wicked smile. Mercy is for weak people. This neighborhood requires perfection. Your ugly truck is gone. The steel winch whined loudly. The front tires left ground. Jack watched in pure horror. His only lifeline floated upward. He felt entirely trapped. And then the morning took another turn. Richard slowly walked around the suspended old truck. He critically inspected the badly dented rear bumper. Do you honestly think I care? He asked coldly. Do you think your poverty moves me? He wiped imaginary dust from his crisp sleeve. This beautiful neighborhood was built for successful professionals. Why did you even move here anyway? Did you think living here makes you wealthy? Jack stood frozen with silent, burning rage. The arrogant insults hit him like physical blows. He had sacrificed everything for this ungrateful country. Now this pampered civilian was ruthlessly mocking him. You bring down the value of everything here. Richard pointed his thick finger right at Jack. Look at your totally pathetic, torn, dirty clothes. Look at your disgusting, rusted, broken vehicle. Are you not incredibly embarrassed by yourself? Do you not feel deeply ashamed? Richard really loved hearing his own authoritative voice. He thrived on making working-class people feel small. He firmly believed his bank account made him superior. People like you are just careless people who expect special treatment. You expect hard-working men like me to care. You expect special treatment because you are poor. Jack heavily gripped the rough canvas duffel strap. He could easily stop this man's angry outburst. He could instantly silence those cruel, mocking words. But his elite training kept him grounded. Violence against an unarmed civilian was unacceptable. I work hard every single day, Jack whispered. His deep voice shook with suppressed, forceful anger. I just need my truck right now, Richard. My family desperately relies on that old vehicle. Richard laughed a sharp, cruel, humorless laugh. Then you should have actually followed my rules. You should have maintained your disgusting, overgrown lawn. You should have parked correctly like civilized people. Now you must finally face the severe consequences. He stepped aggressively close to Jack's tired face. I am cleaning up this entire neighborhood. I am aggressively removing all the ugly trash. And you are the biggest problem here. Richard smiled a cold, dead, cold smile. He truly enjoyed this brutal psychological torture. He felt like a powerful judge delivering harsh justice. He wanted to break Jack's proud, stubborn spirit. He wanted to see this strong man crumble. He wanted Jack to aggressively beg and cry. But Jack's dark eyes remained completely, frighteningly empty. He just stared past Richard's perfectly groomed head. He was looking up at the clear morning sky. He was waiting for his real, powerful brothers. A sharp cry pierced the morning air. The terrible sound came from the house. Jack turned his head quickly. His sick daughter was crying out loud. Her tiny voice sounded incredibly weak. The high fever was getting much worse. She desperately called for her tired father. Jack felt a sudden, sharp chest pain. His fatherly instincts fought his military discipline. He needed to run inside immediately. He needed to comfort his sweet child. But the tow truck was still moving. Oi! The thick steel chains rattled loudly. He was losing his only reliable vehicle. This was the kind of ordinary nightmare many families quietly fear. Without a car, you have no legs. Public transport does not reach this suburb. The hospital was 15 miles away. An ambulance ride would cost a fortune. They simply could not afford that bill. He looked back at the arrogant president. "Richard, listen to me right now. My little girl is dangerously sick. Her temperature is spiking dangerously high. My wife works the terrible night shift. She is coming home on the bus. She will walk through that door soon. She needs to drive our daughter immediately. Urgent care opens in 30 short minutes. They cannot walk there in this condition. They need this old red truck." Jack dropped his heavy green duffel bag. He held both his rough hands open. It was a gesture of pure surrender. He was begging for his family's safety. He swallowed every ounce of his pride. A strong soldier was pleading for mercy. "Take my military ID card right now. Hold it as collateral for the fine. I will pay double the total amount. Just please unhook my family vehicle today." Richard stared at the offered military card. He curled his thin lip in disgust. He crossed his soft, clean white arms. "I do not run a charity clinic. Your domestic issues are not my problem. This neighborhood has strict aesthetic standards. Your ugly truck ruins the local scenery. You should have bought a better vehicle. You should have managed your finances better. Responsible parents plan for medical emergencies properly." Richard enjoyed delivering this cruel, cold lecture. He loved feeling vastly morally superior today. He ignored the crying little girl. Her quiet sobs drifted through the window. They meant nothing to his ego. He only cared about his flawless street. He only cared about his authority. "Maybe you will learn a valuable lesson. Maybe you will finally respect our rules." The truck goes to the impound lot. You can walk there to retrieve it. The impound lot was across the city. It was closed for the entire weekend. Getting the truck back would take days. His wife would be totally stranded here. His daughter would suffer without proper medicine. Jack felt the heavy crush of despair. He had defended this nation with honor. He had bled in foreign desert sand. Now he could not protect his child. He could not defeat a petty bureaucrat. The system was rigged against working people. Wealthy men like Richard always won everything. They wrote the rules to punish poverty. They threatized local codes against struggling families. Jack took one desperate step forward then. He desperately wanted to stop the driver. The tow truck engine roared even louder. The heavy red Ford lurched hard forward. The thick metal chain strained under tension. "Stop doing this to my sick family." Richard quickly took out his cell phone. He held it up like a threat. "Stay back or I call the police. You threaten a community official now. You will go to local custody." Jack froze in his tracks there. An arrest would ruin his deployment. His special forces unit needed him. He was trapped in a nightmare. He could save his truck and family, or he could serve his great country. He could not possibly do both things. The crying from the bedroom grew weaker. His heart shattered into a million pieces. He closed his eyes in ultimate defeat. He slowly lowered his empty, shaking hands. Richard smirked with glorious, cruel victory. He loved breaking a strong man completely. He thought his petty power was supreme. But wait, the real story changes here. The heavy chains groaned loudly. Cold metal bit into the chassis. The old Ford shifted off the ground. The rear tires left the pavement. It hung suspended in midair. Oiter. Jack watched his only hope swing. His heart beat like a storm drum. He felt paralyzed by anger. Richard grinned at the sight. The truck swayed in the breeze. It looked small and utterly helpless. The winch motor shrieked in pain. Black hydraulic fluid leaked slowly out. It stained the pristine concrete driveway. Richard pulled out his shiny phone. He recorded the sad, painful scene. He planned to share this humiliation. He loved crushing the quiet man. Jack looked at his watch again. 2 minutes felt like 2 hours. Where were his real brothers now? His entire future hung in balance. This was a total neighborhood tragedy. Richard gripped his phone with trembling, angry fingers. He dialed the local police station fast. He wanted this soldier removed immediately today. He yelled, "I need an urgent unit here." He painted Jack as a serious public safety concern. He lied effortlessly to the bored dispatch operator. He claimed Jack was acting dangerously. He demanded an immediate and forceful tactical response. He swore that he felt extremely physically threatened. He needed the police to arrive within seconds. He looked at Jack with cold, snobbish contempt. He saw only a dirty, useless, lazy failure. He felt like a victorious king conquering territory. The loud truck engine sounded like pure music. He wanted Jack to break and cry today. Jack ignored the angry man entirely today. He checked his heavy, dark tactical watch. The small green light blinked slowly. He looked at the empty gray sky. His face remained hauntingly calm. "They are 2 minutes late," he muttered clearly. Richard felt a sudden, sharp, and cold spike. Why was this loser acting so weirdly calm? He felt a weird, growing, and deep unease. The silence from the soldier was truly terrifying. Richard continued screaming into his small mobile phone. He demanded they arrest this dangerous, trespassing man. He hated how the soldier stood so still. It felt like a deep, personal, insulting challenge. He grew even more furious with each passing second. And the truth was getting closer now. The local police were not the ones arriving. Something far more powerful was descending rapidly. The entire quiet neighborhood was about to change. Would the sky finally roar out loud? The air grew thick with intense, heavy static. A strange vibration shook the solid pavement. Everyone felt the massive, sudden pressure change. The birds stopped singing in the tall trees. Something dangerous was approaching the gated community now. Richard did not notice the change in pressure. He was too busy demanding a massive police response. He wanted Jack to go to a cold cell. He watched the truck lift off the ground. This was the moment his life would end. The air suddenly turned heavy. It pressed down hard on the manicured street. The morning sun seemed to dim instantly. Birds stopped their cheerful chirping entirely. An unnatural, suffocating silence swallowed the expensive neighborhood. Every single person froze in their tracks. Something was coming from the distant horizon. The quiet suburb felt wrong now. It felt dangerous, sharp, and intensely alert. The manicured lawns seemed to shiver nervously. Everyone sensed the sudden, massive pressure change. The atmosphere felt electric and deeply ominous. It was a physical weight on their chests. A faint thrumming sound began deep inside. It started like a low heartbeat. Then it grew into a rhythmic, angry pulse. It vibrated through the solid concrete pavement. Every window pane in the house rattled gently. Richard Vance stopped mid-sentence with his phone. He looked toward the clear blue sky. His arrogant expression flickered with quick confusion. The thumping noise became a loud roar. It sounded like an angry, mechanical god. It tore through the calm, suburban morning. It was a terrifying, beautiful, and industrial symphony. The sheer volume pushed the air aside. Richard lowered his phone in genuine shock. He looked around at the fleeing neighbors. Panic spread like a wild, untamed fire. People abandoned their morning coffees in fear. They ran back toward their locked houses. They locked their heavy, iron-bound front doors. They watched from behind drawn, thick curtains. The thundering noise grew significantly louder now. It was unmistakable, massive, and truly awe-inspiring. It was not a common commercial flight. It was a military machine built for serious missions. The ground began to shake in protest. Dust rose in small, swirling, angry clouds. Jack Miller stood perfectly still and calm. He adjusted his heavy, dark tactical bag. His eyes scanned the clear morning sky. He knew exactly what was arriving now. He saw the black silhouette appear clearly. It cut through the thin clouds rapidly. A massive Black Hawk helicopter was descending. Its rotors were dark, spinning blades. It was a stark, aggressive military machine. It dominated the small, expensive street. The visual was breathtaking and utterly terrifying. It made the expensive houses look like toys. It signaled a massive shift in power. Richard's mouth dropped open in total disbelief. He stared up at the massive machine. His phone fell to the paved driveway. It shattered into many small, broken pieces. He didn't even notice the expensive loss. He was entirely consumed by raw terror. The helicopter descended with brutal, mechanical precision. Its shadow engulfed the pristine green lawn. The wind force intensified with every second. It blew Richard's perfectly styled hair wild. His expensive polo shirt whipped against him. He struggled to stay on his feet. The noise was now a deafening scream. The neighborhood was no longer a kingdom. It was a landing zone for war. Richard felt small and truly insignificant. All his petty rules meant nothing now. All his fines were utterly irrelevant. The power had shifted in one breath. The sky belonged to the brave men. The ground belonged to the elite soldiers. Richard looked at the ground, trembling uncontrollably. His hands shook with sudden, visceral fear. He could not run, could not speak. He was just a tiny, fragile man. The real giant had finally arrived here, and he was not looking at him. The massive shadow moved quickly now. It swallowed the bright morning sun. Richard squinted against the harsh glare. A huge black beast emerged slowly. Its dark body blocked the light. It was not a civilian taxi. It was a formidable military machine. The Black Hawk hovered low. Dust swirled around its spinning blades. The lawn furniture began to rattle. Richard covered his face in fear. He fell hard onto his knees. His pristine grass looked tiny. The helicopter was a giant monster. It shredded his perfect suburban peace. The roar felt like angry thunder. His expensive polo shirt whipped around. He could not breathe or speak. This was reality turning cold and loud. The machine signaled disciplined power. He felt small and weak. Jack remained calm amidst the storm. He stood like a silent statue. His posture was perfectly straight today. He watched the dark craft descend. The military logo gleamed in sunlight. It was a real tactical unit. Richard gasped in pure, raw terror. He realized his massive, terrible mistake. This soldier was not just unemployed. He was a highly formidable asset. The United States military stood here. The neighborhood rules meant nothing now. Richard felt his cold world collapse. He knew he had made mistakes. He realized his power was fake. This was not a petty dispute. This was a serious military operation. The Black Hawk hovered perfectly low. It looked like a giant bird. It dominated the small suburb. Richard felt the heavy, hot exhaust. It smelled of burnt jet fuel. His manicured yard was being destroyed. He wanted to scream loudly. No words came from his throat. He was paralyzed by shock. The neighborhood was now a restricted operation zone. The local police were forgotten. This was beyond Richard's petty control. This was a new, frightening reality. The soldier was clearly important. Richard had picked the wrong target. His ego was finally being crushed. And the truth was only beginning to unfold. The worst was just beginning now. The power dynamic shifted forever here. Richard watched the heavy side door. He waited for the truth today. He had insulted a silent warrior. Now the entire world would watch. The massive rotor wash hit the green lawn. It felt like a sudden, forceful hurricane force. Richard's perfectly manicured green grass was shredded instantly. Rich, dark soil flew everywhere like black rain. His precious, expensive lawn was destroyed forever now. Deep, ugly ruts appeared in the soft earth. The powerful downdraft ripped up entire thick sods. Roots flew into the swirling, chaotic, dusty air. It looked like a brutal, uncontrolled natural disaster. Richard had spent thousands on this perfect grass. He had fertilized it every single summer week. He had measured every inch with his tape. Now the military machine ruined it all completely. It was a beautiful, satisfying, and karmic destruction today. The flying debris battered the pristine silver BMW. Sharp rocks scratched the glossy, expensive paint job. Hard dirt pelted against the thin metal doors. Tiny branches cracked against the expensive tinted windows. The luxury car shook hard under the wind. It was no longer a symbol of status. It was just a target for flying gravel. A large branch hit the back passenger side. The side mirror snapped off with a pop. Richard watched his status symbol suffer heavy damage. He felt his own ego cracking with it. Every scratch was a strike against his pride. The car looked like a cheap, battered wreck. He had worked so hard to look wealthy. Now he looked entirely broken and ridiculous. Richard covered his eyes from the stinging dust. He screamed at the loud, spinning, metal rotors. The machine ignored his desperate, angry shouting. It was a cold, indifferent, and powerful giant. His expensive polo shirt whipped against his skin. His white khakis were covered in black grime. He felt small and truly pathetic. His neighborhood authority meant nothing to this force. He was nobody in the face of war. He was just a man with a rake. The ground continued to vibrate with immense energy. The entire street felt like a chaotic zone. He tried to stand but fell down again. He was trapped in his own ruined yard. The destructive wind did not stop its work. It kept tearing up the expensive flower beds. Carefully placed roses were crushed into the mud. The plastic ornaments were blown into the street. It was pure, beautiful, and chaotic destruction today. His fake suburban kingdom was falling apart fast. Every expensive rule was now entirely useless here. The powerful military might overwhelmed his tiny authority. He could not stop the spinning metal blades. He could not file a complaint against war. He could not demand a fine from soldiers. He could only sit and watch his ruin. It was a lesson in true, harsh perspective. Richard felt the heavy, suffocating weight of truth. His money could not buy safety from this. His status did not grant him any respect. He felt tiny under the weight of something much larger than his own pride. The helicopter crew was indifferent to his plight. They were focused on a much bigger mission. They did not even see him down there. He was just scenery to their incredible machine. But wait, here is where it gets interesting. The pilot was about to make a move. Richard watched the heavy side door slide open. He waited for the truth to be revealed. He had insulted a dangerous, silent warrior. Now the entire neighborhood would finally witness justice. The heavy sliding door opened. Dark shadows jumped out fast. They moved with precision. 4 ghosts hit the grass. Black tactical gear hid them. Faces were masked with paint. Rifles stayed at low ready. Every single move looked practiced. No hesitation existed in them. They were elite tactical soldiers. Silence followed their arrival. They were truly highly trained professionals. These were an elite special operations unit. They moved like silent ghosts. Their training was unmatched here. They ignored the suburban chaos. They focused on their mission. Their gear was matte black. No bright colors were seen. Only formidable, efficient, silent force. They landed with heavy thuds. The earth shook beneath them. They looked ready for war. Every breath was controlled today. The team scanned the yard. Eyes moved behind dark goggles. They assessed every hidden threat. They ignored the shattered BMW. They ignored the weeping president. Richard meant nothing today. These were men of service. They lived in shadows daily. Their movements were incredibly sharp. Every step was perfectly planned. They secured the perimeter fast. They moved like single organisms. Total discipline defined their actions. They were ghosts of combat. Nothing distracted their deep focus. The suburban street was irrelevant. Only the extraction mattered now. They moved with terrifying efficiency. Silence was their only language. They were built for war. This was their natural environment. Their training took years. They were the nation's steady shield. They were trained to answer when the stakes were highest. They spotted Jack Miller standing. The team leader stepped forward. He gave a sharp nod. It was a silent greeting. Jack nodded back in return. Their brotherhood was incredibly deep. They shared secret, difficult histories. They survived chaos together daily. Richard looked on in shock. His mouth hung wide open. He saw true raw power. He saw genuine, formidable force. These men were not civilians. They were not neighborhood residents. They were the nation's steady shield. They were trained to answer when the stakes were highest. Richard felt deeply small. His fake authority died instantly. He stood in pure terror. He watched the real men. They ignored his pathetic fear. They were on duty now. The team leader patted Jack. It was a reassuring gesture. They were ready to go. They moved toward the truck. The driver dropped the winch. The red Ford hit dirt. It was freed from chains. They secured the heavy bag. Jack grabbed his gear tightly. He was ready for extraction. His eyes held sharp focus. The mission began right here. Richard crawled back toward safety. His ego was finally broken. He saw his small life. It was nothing compared now. These men were genuine heroes. They saved people for real. They did not find neighbors. They did not measure lawns. They risked their lives daily. Richard looked at the ground. He had lost the game. His power was pure delusion. The quiet professionals had arrived here. They changed the world today. But the real secret is their mission was just beginning. Richard watched them board. He knew he was finished. The helicopter lifted up fast. It flew into the clouds. He was truly all alone. The 4 elite soldiers approached Jack with military precision. Their heavy boots crunched deep into Richard's ruined lawn. They ignored the wealthy, trembling homeowners association leader today. Jack stood incredibly tall and regained his military posture. His tired eyes suddenly sharpened with intense, cold focus. He felt the heavy weight of duty returning instantly. Richard stared in horror at the unfolding scene. He did not understand this strange, high-level interaction. Why would these terrifying men respect this poor soldier? His fragile world of property values began to shatter. The fear of his mistake started to sink in. This was definitely not a simple parking dispute anymore. The team leader stopped directly in front of Jack. He lifted his right hand with sharp, clean discipline. He snapped a crisp, perfect, and deeply respectful salute. Jack returned the gesture with equally flawless military form. The air between them hummed with mutual, silent respect. It was a clear, undeniable recognition of superior rank. "Captain Miller, we are ready for immediate tactical extraction." The leader's voice boomed across the silent, dead street. Richard gasped as the rank finally hit his brain. Captain. This dirty, broke man was a high-ranking officer. His mind struggled to process this devastating new information. He felt nauseous standing on his ruined grass. The title hung heavy in the thick morning air. Richard had mocked a highly decorated professional hero. He had treated a brave captain like common trash. His face burned with a deep, humiliating, shameful heat. He looked at his own tiny, petty little hands. They were shaking uncontrollably in the cool morning breeze. Jack turned his cold, hard gaze toward Richard now. He did not look like a tired, broken man. He looked like the formidable, dangerous soldier he was. Now, listen carefully, because the dynamic has changed here. Jack's honor was restored in that one single salute. Richard was just a man with a broken ego. Jack checked his gear one final quiet time today. He stepped onto the helicopter with steady, practiced movements. He left Richard kneeling in his own dirt. The Homeowners Association president had no more rules to enforce. The silence that followed was heavy and final. The true authority had finally departed the small neighborhood. The pride drained from Richard's face. His skin turned an ashen gray. He looked like a frightened child. His hands clutched the dirty grass. He stammered out some broken words. I did not know. Please, sir, listen to me. His voice cracked like dry glass. He was truly a pathetic sight. The neighborhood king was gone forever. Only a terrified man remained here. Richard looked at his broken phone. He looked at the shattered lawn. Everything he built was gone. The soldiers stood above him now. Jack Miller looked down with pity. Richard finally understood his massive mistake. He was just a small man. He had bullied a true hero. His fear was cold and deep. He wanted to offer some excuse. His mind was spinning in circles. He tried to justify his actions. The words tasted like bitter ash. It was just a rule. I was doing my job. He sounded weak and hollow. The elite soldiers ignored him completely. They moved with silent purpose. Richard sat in the deep mud. His perfect khaki pants were ruined. He was not a president now. He was just a frightened man. He looked at the black helicopter. It seemed to judge his cowardice. He felt the weight of truth. His power was a fragile lie. He was never truly in control. He was always a sad man. Now the truth was visible. His neighbors watched from the windows. They saw their bully finally break. The shame burned his cold skin. He had no more fake authority. He was left with nothing today. He felt the gaze of everyone. Every neighbor watched his total collapse. He wanted to hide from everyone. The sky was incredibly bright today. It exposed his petty, small life. He was a pathetic figure. The reality was finally crashing down. He had destroyed his own reputation. He had ruined his own standing. He had insulted a national hero. The consequences were truly severe. He sat in the cooling mud. He watched the massive rotor blades. They spun with formidable, beautiful speed. He realized he was utterly finished. And then the morning took another turn coming. Richard was about to lose everything. His life of control was over. The neighborhood would never forget this. He was a laughingstock forever now. No one would respect him again. His petty power vanished like smoke. His fragile ego was finally gone. He sat alone in the dirt. He realized he was lost. His world was empty and dark. He had nothing left to say. The cruiser tires screeched on the road. Red and blue lights flashed wildly today. Sirens wailed loudly through the cool morning air. The neighborhood felt like a chaotic crime scene. Richard ran toward the arriving patrol cars. He waved his arms frantically indeed. Arrest this dangerous man immediately. He yelled loudly. He is trespassing on my private property. He is threatening me with force. The two deputies stepped out with hands near their equipment. They looked serious and extremely cautious. They expected a dangerous and serious threat here. They kept their eyes on the suspect. They walked toward the ruined, muddy front lawn. Their eyes quickly scanned the black tactical team. They saw the black, intimidating tactical gear. They noticed the massive military insignia clearly now. They saw the captain's rank badge on Jack. The deputies froze in their tracks instantly then. Their hands moved away from their leather holsters. They recognized the real, supreme authority standing here. This was not a petty, small neighborhood dispute. This was a highly classified military extraction operation. The officers knew exactly who these men were. The senior deputy stood straight up right now. He looked at Jack with deep, genuine respect. He snapped a sharp, crisp, formal salute. His partner quickly did the exact same thing. Richard looked between them in pure, total confusion. His entire world was crumbling right now. He did not understand the bizarre, sudden scene. These were the local law enforcers today. They were supposed to serve his petty needs. Why were they saluting the dirty, quiet soldier? He felt deeply betrayed by these police officers. The reality sank in slowly right now. He was on the wrong side of history. The soldier held true, real, national power. The police knew their true rightful rank well. Richard was just a loud, small man. He had zero power left right now. But wait, There is even more to this shock. Richard was about to be officially reported himself. The deputy walked past the kneeling Homeowners Association president. He ignored Richard's shocked, open mouth. He approached Jack with humble, professional courtesy. "Captain Miller, we apologize for this sudden delay. We will clear the street for extraction." Richard felt his heavy heart sink deep. His own threat was his phone. The police were working for the soldier, Schroyer. He felt the cold sting of failure. He was the one breaking the law. He was the one hindering national security. His arrogance had caused a major crime. He was just a small, broken man. Every neighbor watched the total collapse. The entire street felt cold and quiet. Richard looked at the ground, trembling uncontrollably. His hands shook with sudden, visceral fear. He could not run, could not speak. He was just a tiny, fragile man. The real giant had finally arrived here. He saw his small life vanish. It was nothing compared to this. These men were genuine, true heroes. They save people for real today. They did not find their neighbors. They did not measure lawns for money. They risked their lives daily for freedom. Richard looked at the ground in shame. He had lost the game badly. His power was pure, total delusion. The quiet professionals had arrived, and the truth had arrived with them. They changed the world today. And finally, the team leader turned toward the tow driver. His cold eyes showed zero mercy. "Remove all vehicles from this landing zone." His voice echoed across the quiet street. The tow driver trembled with sudden fear. He dropped the red Ford truck quickly. He looked at the soldier's black tactical gear. It was a clear, silent, final threat. He did not want any further problems today. Every move was rushed and sloppy. The heavy chains clanked on the pavement. He scrambled back to his tow truck. He scrambled to save his own neck. Was the driver ever this scared before? Probably not in his entire professional career. He started the loud diesel engine immediately. He needed to exit this chaotic zone. "What about my BMW?" Richard shouted out desperately. The leader didn't even look his way. "Your vehicle is a significant security hazard. It must be moved to the impound. Clear it out, or we seize it." Richard watched his shiny car get hooked. It was the ultimate, poetic, final justice. His status was now just scrap metal. The luxury car looked small and fragile. It was just an object in the way. He watched his status symbol suffer damage. Every scratch was a strike against his pride. The car looked like a cheap, battered wreck. He had worked so hard to look wealthy. Now he looked entirely broken and ridiculous. He felt his cold world collapse fully. The tow driver dragged the BMW away. He did not care about the owner. He wanted to finish this nightmare job. He drove down the perfectly paved street. The luxury wheels scraped the hard curb. Richard watched his pride slowly disappear away. He felt the heavy weight of ruin. Everything he built was gone now. He sat alone in the damp mud. He watched the massive rotor blades spin. They moved with formidable and beautiful speed. He realized he was utterly finished today. The neighbors watched from the upstairs windows. They saw their neighborhood bully finally break. The shame burned his cold, pale skin. He had no more fake, petty authority. He was left with nothing today. Richard looked at the shattered phone screen. He looked at the ruined green lawn. He felt the intense, heavy, dark shame. The neighborhood would never forget this day. He was a massive, laughing-stock target now. No one would ever respect him again. His petty power vanished like gray smoke. His fragile ego was finally totally crushed. He sat alone in the wet dirt. He realized he was lost here. His world was empty, dark, and hollow. He had nothing left to say now. Why did he bully the soldier earlier? He had made a grave mistake. He had challenged a true American hero. The military machine roared into the air. It lifted off the suburban street today. It left behind a ruined, dirty lawn. It left behind a truly broken man. The neighborhood would never be the same again. The power balance was permanently shifted now. Jack Miller stood tall in the craft. He did not look back at Richard. He had a mission to complete today. His brothers surrounded him with total focus. They were the nation's sharpest, dangerous sword. Richard watched the blackbird fly away. He was finally left to his ruin. The silence returned to the gated community, but everything was changed forever by this. He was a small man indeed. The truth had finally exposed the man who thought he ruled everyone. The deputy walked slowly toward the silver, gleaming car. He inspected the narrow, paved suburban street carefully. Richard's expensive vehicle blocked the emergency path entirely. It was a clear and serious violation today. The officer pointed firmly at the pristine BMW. He noted the car sat inside the landing zone. The landing path required a clear street space. This was a massive security and safety risk indeed. Richard watched with wide, terrified, and watery eyes now. He knew he was in deep, real, and lasting trouble. He was utterly defeated by his own unchecked greed. He looked at the helicopter hovering above them all. It made his small, petty life look ridiculous. He stood frozen while the deputy waited for him. He felt the weight of his own arrogance crushing him. "This luxury car is illegally positioned right here," the officer spoke with a cold, hard tone. "It dangerously obstructs an active military landing zone. Move it immediately or get towed right now." Richard felt his heavy, panicked heart sink down fast. He tried to stand up right now, but failed. His weak, shaking legs felt like soft, melting jelly, and the turn of fate was only beginning. He watched the driver approach his expensive, shining car. His hands clutched the dirty, wet, cold grass tightly. He was watching his last shred of power disappear. The embarrassment burned his pale, sweaty, and exposed skin. The officer waved the tow driver over now. The driver smirked at the disgraced, pathetic neighborhood president. He enjoyed this sudden and beautiful, sweet, poetic reversal. He hooked up the luxury vehicle quickly indeed. The massive tow engine roared back to life again. The heavy BMW groaned loudly under the immense metal force. Richard's fake status was fading deeply fast now. He watched his pride being dragged away slowly down the road. It was the ultimate and poetic, dark, and sweet justice. He realized he would never be the king here. The power he cherished was actually just a myth. He felt the cold, hard reality of his life. The neighborhood watched him fall apart right now. They whispered among themselves in the quiet suburban street. They saw the end of his small, petty tyranny. Richard sat alone in the cold, wet, dark dirt. He looked at his own trembling, pale, useless hands. He had no power left today at all. His world was shattered into tiny, irreparable pieces. He realized he had lost the respect of everyone. His reputation was now a pile of broken glass. He was truly the most hated man in Virginia. The car disappeared around the sharp neighborhood corner finally. The tow chains clanked into the deep, dark silence. Richard remained broken in the deep, soft, muddy earth. He had nothing left to say right now, honestly. His petty homeowners association empire lay in total ruins. The street felt quiet, peaceful, and totally empty now. He wanted to hide from all the watching neighbors. He stayed there as a broken, small, and pathetic man. The heavy rotor blades spun faster. A loud hum filled the morning air. Jack climbed aboard with steady hands. His team greeted him with firm nods. He felt a sudden wave of relief. His daughter was in safe hands today. The military medics moved with great speed. They entered the silent, empty White House. They carried a small, compact medical kit. The rotor speed increased deeply quickly. The Black Hawk lifted off the ground. It cleared the damaged brown suburban trees. Jack looked down one last final time. His secret mission was his life now. He trusted his brothers here today. They protected his small, fragile, young family. The chopper gained altitude deeply fast. It left the ruined, muddy lawn behind. The neighborhood became a tiny, distant dot. The medics approached the open bedroom door. They found the sick, tired little girl. She was shivering hard on the bed. A medic touched her burning hot skin. He checked her rapid, shallow, weak pulse. He gave her cool, clear, wet medicine. She sipped the liquid medicine slowly. Her breathing slowed down deeply quickly. The terrible danger began to fade away. She finally fell into a calm sleep. The medic smiled at her pale mother. His gentle voice offered quiet, needed comfort. She knew everything was perfectly okay now. Her beautiful child was truly safe again. The high fever broke within the hour. She looked peaceful in her deep sleep. The house felt warm, safe, and quiet. The terror had passed away quite completely. Jack felt his tired shoulders drop down. The intense, heavy, dark pressure vanished away. He trusted his elite team members deeply. They looked after his precious young girl. He closed his tired, heavy, burning eyes. The mission would be deeply difficult, but his heart felt deeply light. His family was not alone anymore now. The military took care of them all, but the real secret is this mission defined everything. He focused on the difficult task ahead. He was ready for the coming fight. This was his duty and his life. He prepared for the long, cold flight. The world was at his tired feet. He was ready to save more lives. He was a proud, dedicated, brave soldier. The open sky was his true home. Monday night at the community center felt unusually cold and harsh. Richard walked into the main room expecting his usual deference. He wore his favorite cashmere sweater and perfectly pressed trousers. He walked toward the podium with his standard, arrogant stride. He expected the residents to ignore the morning's wild chaos, but the room was not silent in the way he liked. The residents were not looking down at their clipboards today. They were standing, their arms crossed, staring directly at him. The air was thick with long suppressed, simmering, and righteous anger. The treasurer spoke first, skipping all the usual polite pleasantries. She held a thick stack of printed emails and bank statements. "We know about the unauthorized towing fees, Richard." The room filled with a low, murmuring wave of intense anger. He had been skimming community funds for his personal legal bills. He had been bullying residents into paying for his vanity projects. The mask of the Homeowners Association president finally began to slip. He saw the cold, hard realization on every single face. They were no longer afraid of his petty neighborhood power. He tried to shout over them like he always did, but his voice lacked the authority it held just yesterday morning. A father whose car was towed last month stood up. He recounted the harassment with shaking, pale, and angry hands. He showed the police reports regarding Richard's petty, illegal threats. More people followed, bringing their own stories of constant intimidation. The board members looked at each other and nodded in agreement. There was no defense left for his pathetic small empire. He realized that his reign was finished right there. A motion was put forward to remove him immediately today. Every hand in the room shot up into the air. Richard looked around, desperately seeking one familiar, loyal, friendly face. But there was no one left to defend his honor. He was just a small, broken man in a nice sweater. The vote was unanimous and deeply fast indeed. He was officially stripped of his title and all access. He gathered his documents with shaking, pale, and trembling hands. He was exiled from his own small, fake suburban kingdom. He left the community center without looking back even once. The automatic doors slid shut behind his back with force. The night air felt sharp and unforgiving on his skin. He drove his wife's sedan home in complete, utter silence. His own BMW was still sitting in the city impound. His house felt cold, quiet, and deeply lonely tonight. He was just a resident now, and a hated one. The gate to his homeowners association opened for his car alone. But it felt different, smaller, and less welcoming than before. He had lost everything in one single short day. True power is rarely found in loud, aggressive shouting. People who scream the loudest often possess the least authority. Richard needed to control his neighborhood with paper fines. Why do we value the wrong kind of leaders? He craved the attention of every single passing neighbor. His fragile ego required constant public displays of control. He was merely an insecure man playing at kingship. Real strength is almost always found in silent actions. Is loud noise ever a sign of true strength? Great men like Jack carry heavy, visible, permanent scars. They sacrifice their own safety for the greater good. They do not need to flaunt their status publicly. They prove their worth through quiet, deep, selfless service. Humility is the greatest mark of a true hero. Look at how easily their world shifted today. The loud voice vanished when the real power arrived. Richard's paper authority crumbled into the damp, dark mud. Who truly deserves our respect in this hard life? Jack's silent duty remained standing, strong and enduring forever. Kindness and courage are the only currencies that matter. True influence is measured by how you help others. Richard's sudden, dramatic departure left deep silence across the street. Neighbors finally felt they could breathe freely and openly today. The community board meetings are quiet, productive, and respectful. Everyone works together to improve shared living space daily now. They prioritize simple kindness over petty, miserable, and small power trips. It is amazing how fast a community heals when bullying ends. Residents no longer fear the sharp sting of those cruel fines. They greet each other with genuine, warm, and friendly smiles. This is what a neighborhood should feel like every single day. The sun seems to shine brighter on these quiet streets. People walk their dogs without checking over their tired shoulders. The Homeowners Association office is finally just a place for service. No one fears receiving an unfair, hateful, and expensive citation. Is your local neighborhood finally peaceful and quiet now? The dark shadow of Richard's authority hung over everyone for years. People walked on quiet tension just to avoid his wrathful, aggressive complaints. Now the lawns are green but not manicured like cold prisons. The neighborhood feels like a genuine, welcoming home once again today. Real families live here, not just silent and obedient subjects. The transformation of this small community is a profound, moving lesson. Everyone contributes to the beauty of the street in unique ways. There is no more judging or measuring grass height with rulers. Richard's years of pressure are a distant, bad, and fading memory. The residents reclaimed their peace and their dignity with calm resolve. They are truly the winners of this strange neighborhood conflict. Often, we tolerate small, petty bullies because we fear the hassle. We stay quiet because we want to avoid public, shameful embarrassment. But silence only fuels the fire of these petty neighborhood dictators. When one person finally stands up, it inspires everyone else too. Courage is incredibly contagious, and it spreads rapidly through fearful communities. Jack Miller did not seek the fight, but he finished it. He showed that bullies only thrive when we give them fear. Strength comes from standing your ground against those who abuse power. We learned that one voice can change a whole entire world. It was a victory for the common, honest, and hard-working person. Never underestimate the power of standing up for what is right. It makes you think about your daily environment and the people. Perhaps you have dealt with a Richard in your own life. Maybe it was a demanding boss, a difficult, harsh, cruel landlord. It is never easy to confront people who hold petty power. The fear of retaliation often keeps us trapped in our silence. But you are stronger than you think, and your voice matters. Standing up for yourself is the first step toward reclaiming dignity. Your peace is worth more than a quiet, safe, passive existence. You deserve to live in a place where kindness actually wins out. Do not let small people make you feel like you are small. Own your strength and claim your own space in this world. So here is my final question for you about this entire situation. Have you ever been pushed around by petty bullies in life? Did you ever find the courage to stand up for yourself? Share your story in the comments section below to support others. Tell us your experience and help inspire someone else who needs it. We all need to hear how you stood your ground firmly today. Your story could be the catalyst that someone else needs to reclaim power, stand up to their own local bully with courage and with strength. It is time to speak up, share your voice, and be heard. Let us build a community based on love and not on fear. Thank you for watching and sharing your truth with us all today. In the end, this story is not really about a truck, a lawn, or a man with a title. It is about the quiet choices people make when they believe no one powerful is watching. Richard had many chances to pause, listen, and show simple kindness. He could have looked at a tired father, heard the cry of a sick child, and chosen mercy over control. One small act of patience would have changed the entire day. Instead, he chose pride, and pride turned his whole world against him. Jack's strength was different. He did not need to shout, threaten, or prove himself to anyone on that driveway. He carried fear for his daughter, responsibility for his team, and the pain of being misunderstood, yet he still held himself together. That is the kind of strength that lasts. The strength to stay calm when someone is unfair. The strength to protect your family without losing your character. The strength to serve others even when your own heart is breaking. The lesson is simple, but it reaches deep. Titles do not make a person important. Money does not make a person wise. Rules do not matter if they are used without compassion. What truly matters is how we treat people when they are tired, worried, embarrassed, or in need. A little kindness can give someone enough strength to keep going. A little humility can save a community from years of pain. A little courage can help ordinary people stand together and rebuild what fear has broken. So when life gives you power, even a small kind of power, use it gently. When someone comes to you with a problem, listen before you judge. When you see a neighbor struggling, remember that you may only be seeing one piece of a much heavier story. We all carry battles that others cannot see. We all need grace sometimes. And the strongest people are not the ones who make others feel small. The strongest people are the ones who help others stand tall again. If this story moved you, take a moment to think about the kind of person you want to be when someone needs patience from you. Think about the people who have shown you mercy when you needed it most. Then carry that same mercy forward, because in the end, the world becomes better one choice at a time, one conversation at a time, one act of kindness at a time. And sometimes the smallest kindness is the thing that changes everything.